local people, local news and events, local sports, local matters. For all things Lloydminster and area, this is Live with Kurt Price.
Hey, welcome inside the new Lloydminster Nissan. The 2025 models are here, and they look absolutely fantastic. Nissan has redesigned a lot of their inventory, so if you're looking for a Kicks, we have one right in the showroom here. Beautiful Kicks. We also have the Nissan Armada and the Armada Pro 4X that you can come take a look at. That's a brand new model, and they've completely redesigned the Murano, which was popular before they redesigned it. Now you should see it. It's even nicer. If you think the exterior is nice, have a look at the interior of the 2025 Muranos, and you're going to love the new colors. Plus, here at the new Lloydminster Nissan, Saskatchewan and Alberta safeties right now are only $79.99. We have a Patchwork broadcast coming your way with my co-host, Tracy Kay. And we also are really excited to have the 2025 Oilman of the Year with us. Richard Klinger is here, so he'll be honored tomorrow night at the Oil and Gas Open Bonspiel Banquet, which I'm the MC of. And we're excited that he has given us some of his time. So we're really super excited that he is here. We also want to congratulate the Lloydminster Bandits on their huge comeback win last night over the Vermilion Tigers. Game 7 was a doozy, and the Bandits are off to the Northeast Alberta Junior B Hockey League Finals. And once again, they will play Wainwright, the juggernaut of the NEA GBHL. The future of women's hockey is coming to Lloydminster for the 2025 SO Cup. From April 20th to 26th, watch the host Lloydminster Steelers face off against 5 regional champions from across Canada, all at the Centennial Civic Centre. Full event ticket packages are on sale now. They start at just $90. Visit hockeycanada.ca/SO Cup to get your tickets and be there when Canada's women's under-18 club champions are crowned. It's not just a name, it is Superior Water. Superior Water has 2 locations in Lloydminster and are open on Sundays to make filling your big blue jugs quicker and easier. If you want great tasting water right from your tap, you can call the Superior Water team and ask about their under the sink reverse osmosis systems. 780-875-6636. I drink Superior Water because I like the taste, and after all, it's right in the name. It is indeed Superior Water. Open on 57th Avenue, Monday to Friday, 8 to 6, and Saturdays and Sundays, 10 to 5, and they have a coin-operated location not far from where I live, just off Highway 17 South by 7-Eleven. Cupcakes for Caregivers is presented by Lloydminster and District United Way and Sobeys in Lloydminster. It's your chance to recognize and thank the caregivers in your life. 1 in 4 people are caregivers in some capacity, whether they're doctors, nurses, care home workers, teachers, but it also might be a family member. You know, family members take care of others not because they have to, but because they want to, and it's just a necessity. And all you got to do to recognize a caregiver is send us an email. Just tell us a little bit, or a lot if you want, about that special caregiver. Email livewithkurtprice@gmail.com. We have presented cupcakes to doctors here in town, of course. We've presented them to wives who take care of their husbands, teachers, all kinds of things. Our latest winner was Lori Harris, a teacher over at the Lloydminster Native Friendship Center. They're committed, certified, reliable, and will help you get your life back. BioClean Disaster Services. BioClean Disaster Services is not only Lloydminster's largest restoration company, but they're the local restoration company. You see their name on the BioClean Aquatic Center. You see them all around town, and that's because they give back. That's what being local is all about. And what does it mean when they say to help you get your life back? Well, taking care of your property, taking care of your belongings, that's important. But what really matters to BioClean Disaster Services is you and your family. That's BioClean Disaster Services. We'll take a real short break. When we come back, we've got Richard Klinger here, the Oilman of the Year, who will be honored tomorrow night.
At CK McKean Roofing, they understand what it took to put that roof over your head for your family. With over 20 years of experience under their belt, they strive to show you that with their workmanship and their integrity. Not all roofing companies are created equal, and that's why CK McKean Roofing encourages you to focus on your most important investments, your home and your family. CK McKean Roofing. Roofers do it on top.
At Diamond 7 Meats, we work with local farm families to provide a high-quality product and a great selection for you. Try our mouth-watering smokies, pulled pork, roast beef, and more, made pure and natural with no additives or fillers. We offer custom processing, and our experienced team works for you to provide a selection of sausage, burgers, and jerkies made to your specifications. Take your grilling to the next level with a Yoder smoker. Complete the grilling experience with a Canadian-made, award-winning line of House of Q barbecue sauces. We're locally owned and operated, and we look forward to seeing you today.
At Lloydminster and District Co-op, membership matters more. Because being part of a co-op means you're connected to something bigger than yourself. From long-held legacy by those who built our communities, to people you call family, friends, and neighbors. When you're a Lloyd Co-op member, you're an owner in a local business that prides itself on purpose alongside profit. You earn cash back, you help support causes that matter most, and you're building a better way of life for the next generation. Membership matters more.
Discover Wellings and experience more freedom with every choice you make. Join Wellings for a spring open house Saturday, the April 12th. Enjoy refreshments, tour the community, and uncover a stress-free and carefree way of life again. That's Saturday, April 12th from 10 to 4 p.m. Discover your 55-plus lifestyle at Wellings of Lloydminster, 3211 72nd Avenue on the Alberta side. Visit wellingsoflloydminster.com and get more information. Well, we are here at the new Lloydminster Nissan on Highway 17 South, and we've got our co-host back, Tracy Kay.
Is this the new Lloydminster Nissan?
It's the new, and what a place it is.
New.
It's the new.
Who knew it was going to be new?
New. And of course, we have Richard Klinger here, the 2025 Oilman of the Year, and I can't thank you enough for giving us some of your time, Richard. We've invited
My pleasure.
Each time there's an oilman, we invite him on. Some say, "Nah, no, I'm not a public speaker, or I can't do that." Richard said yes right away, Tracy.
Richard,
He didn't even
can
think
I
about
shake your hand? Because Richard, how long have you known Richard?
Not very long.
I've known Richard, oh boy, over 30 years.
I've known of Richard.
Well, 2-second story. I used to sell water pumps, pumps on his pressure trucks to Richard way back. Probably well over 30 years ago. Yeah, when he was doing this Klinger's trucking, him and his brother Mel.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
cousin Mel.
Because of Mel, okay.
No, it's cousin Mel.
Oh,
He
is
was-
it cousin
yeah,
Mel?
he
I
was a
said brother
cousin
Mel,
of mine.
cousin
Yeah,
Mel, I
yeah.
should say.
Yeah.
But you guys were always together all the time, and
Yeah.
true story, everybody thought they were brothers. Honestly, they did, because they were always, they were always doing business together and that, but that's how far back we go. Back in the 90s, I was selling.
Well, I spent some time with Richard yesterday, and we're going to get to Mel because Mel has a huge part of Klingers through the 80s. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a bit. Tracy, what is going on in the oil field right now? Like, how are things? Like are people
Notice how I
nervous
went,
right now? Is it humming along? What's going on? in the oil
I
field?
just think, from my perspective as an oil and gas, you missed the cue. Producer.
Oh, yeah, he's a producer
Right.
now.
Remember,
That's
we
right,
used to
too.
go to the oil show and
We
did
don't
all
hear
the
the end of it,
interviews.
Richard. We never
Yeah,
hear the
so
end of it.
back when we did the oil show here last year, I came in as a producer, not as a vendor, and so the joke was going around in all the interviews that I'm a producer representative this year. So Integrity Oil and Gas, and so anyway, to make a long story short, I'm just staying optimistic. I think at the end of the day, the smoke is going to clear. I think Daniel Smith and Scott Moe are just hanging in there and doing the right thing. I think at the end of the day, after all the chaos clears, we're going to have a clear line as to where we need to go. In my opinion, and we're going to have a show here hopefully in the next 3 to 4 weeks on the tariffs, etc. you know, we need to understand that we've just put ourselves kind of in a box where we needed to get our stuff east and west a long time ago. And then unfortunately now our only choice is to go south with our oil when we should have been east and west a long time ago, and then we wouldn't be in this dilemma. The reason why we have market down to the south right now is because it's the quickest way for us to get the oil to somebody. It's not discounted oil. That's the price we get for it in the US. If we could get our oil offshore, we'd get a better price for it. So we have to start looking at that I just think Trump's move, in my opinion, is he's just forcing us to do some stuff we've never had to do before, and I'm hoping that that'll work out for everybody.
Breakup's coming up right away too.
Well, I thought breakup was here just within the last, that saying is it come in like a lion and out like a lamb. It came in like a lamb and it's kind of cranky out today like a lion. So, the good part about March though for us oil guys is that you only got about 2 or 3 weeks and then hopefully the weather's going to be better again. But they did put some bans on it last week and the week before, but I don't know if they're coming back off again because it's cool. And Richard knows more about those logistics than I do because of the trucking.
He knows how to get around them too.
Yeah, he knows how to get around. Like when we had our coil trucks, we would take the compressors and stuff off of them and things like that, or half loads or whatever, just so you could meet some of the road ban regulations and that. But we were hovering around $60 to $65 US for our oil for the last few months. And every time somebody is asking about what the new government is going to be, everybody's going, oh boy, what's that going to look like? But we're at $55.33 for US for Western Canadian Select, and $66.78 US for WTI. And the benchmark still is if your oil is over $70 US a barrel, man, we're going to be in really good shape. We're a little ways from that right now, but that's kind of the benchmark. If you're at $70 WTI for WTI, I'm saying, and you're close to hovering around that, we're in pretty good shape. And we're still getting a pretty good fair market for our oil right now. Rig counts are down about 14 in Canada to 234. Internationally, they're about even at 905 rigs out there working, and the US is only down one at 592. So
drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, drill, baby, drill, and just let some of this smoke clear, and I think we're going to be in really good shape. That's just my take, and I follow that stuff like a badger. So.
Are you still following that stuff, Richard, or do you let yourself go, nope, that's somebody else's worry now?
No, I've been following that too, and I sort of have to agree with Tracy. I think some of this stuff that's happening right now with Trump is going to sort of kick our asses into gear,
yeah,
where we clean up some of our cross-border trading,
yes,
and stuff like that, and maybe get our pipelines in. So I look forward to the future too. I think there is some optimism there.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Richard, I'm curious what it was like to get that phone call saying you're the Oilman of the Year.
That was I was impressed. I didn't know how to answer it right off the start. I was sort of following, like Kirk was saying. I'm not a speaker. I don't know if I want to stand up in front of a bunch of people. But after a minute or two, I said, yeah, that is a great honor. I've had a couple of other awards that I've got in the past, and this is sort of the icing on the cake. So I'm really happy and pleased with it.
Yeah, Klinger's has been the business of the year.
Yes.
You've been honored several times with that, actually, haven't you? More than once.
No, I got Business of the Year once, and then the college, Lakeland College, gave me a Bachelor of Business degree. That was a great honor. So I've had those three, and like I say, this one here is a real honor. And another thing with this one here being such an honor, a lot of the individuals that I did invite to join us are all old long-term employees that are still with us, still talking, and we're still in touch. Great honor for them.
So you grew up in Lashburn. Did you was there a point where you just said the oil field's going to be for me, or what was your plan growing up? Did you kind of a lot of guys just stumble into the oil field and make it from there? What was your plan growing up in Lashburn?
Well,
Or around Lashburn, I should say.
my father was a farmer, so it was a natural for me to get into the farming business. At 18, I had bought land and I was farming with him. I started working in the oil patch on pipelines and on drilling rigs a little bit. And then I got working with Husky. I met Ross Oilman one day and he asked if I'd consider working at the truck pit in Lloyd, on the west side of Lloyd here. I took him up on it. Worked there for 3 years.
What was that job? What did you do there?
They had two big national treaters, and it was, all the oil there was being trucked in. Timor was trucking in oil. Freddie North had a few trucks back then bringing in there.
Richard, where was that? Was that right across the street from Pizza Hut and right in there? Was that where it was?
Right on that piece of ground where they've got all
Reclamation
the
for the last 25
Yep,
years? I figured that,
That's
yeah.
the spot.
Yeah.
And we treated oil and chipped it, cleaned the water and sand out of it, and set her to pipeline spec and shipped her over to the refinery.
So you go, how long were you there?
I was there for 3 years.
And what was next?
And from there, Husky asked if I had transferred to Golden Lake 2 out at Maidstone, and that was a fire flood area. And so I went out there and treated oil. There wasn't a truck pit there, it was all pipelined in. And I worked there for a little over a year in the fire flood, which was a little harder to treat, that type of oil, but good experience. And then when I left there, the Husky moved me to Lashburn-Waseca unit to get some experience there. And I worked up there again, trucked in oil and piped in oil. And I worked there for a year. And then Husky actually moved me to Furness Battery, which was a new battery being built just southeast of Lloyd here.
Who were the guys that would have been in your time back then at Husky? Who would have been some of the guys you were working with, Richard?
John Donovan was my
John Donovan, wow.
Yeah, was my foreman at Golden Lake 2. George Huxley was my foreman at Lashburn-Waseca unit. And then out at Furness Battery, Arnie Amandrud was my initial supervisor. And then, well, I guess he was sort of there till the end. And out there, Husky had sort of come out to see me. Stan Stebley came up to see me one day and said, are you going to, because I always farmed at that time too. And he said, are you going to farm or are you going to work for Husky?
Oh boy.
And this was in September, and the combine was sitting. And I said, I'm sorry, but I've got a combine that's got to run also. And so Husky and I had a bit of a parting of the ways. It was under good terms, but we had a parting of the ways. On the way out of the battery, Danny Lorenzi stopped me and said, I hear you might be looking for some work. And Danny worked for Hudson Bay Oil and Gas then.
Yep.
And pumped, I think it was 70-some wells himself. And he said, do you want to come and help me? So I said, that would be great. I went and finished that harvest off and got a hold of him, started pumping wells with him. And a couple of months later, Frank Lorenzi had Frank's Oilfield Services.
Yep.
He had a couple of water trucks, and he was going to build his first pressure truck. So Frank asked if I'd consider giving him a hand building his first pressure truck. Why not? So I helped him build it, doing all the pipe fitting on it and stuff. And then he said, well, you've done all this. Why don't you just operate it for me also?
So you built that truck for him?
Well,
Designed it, kind of?
we together did the pipe fitting on it, and we had contractors that set the pump on, mounted all that stuff, and Jasper Tank put the tank on.
Do you have a Gardner Denver on it?
Yes, he had a PW3 on it then.
PW3, okay.
And I ran it for him for a few months, and then I sat down with him and I said, Frank, I think I'd like to build my own truck. Well, he didn't like it at first, but then he sort of said, well, then why don't you run it with him?
Yeah, contract with him.
Contract with him, be a lease operator. And I said, well, I could probably do that. And we sort of kept, on good terms. And
How much of a risk was that,
well,
Richard? You and I have talked. We talked yesterday. But you said sometimes you got to take a risk. How much of a risk was that?
well, it was. Well, I wouldn't do it again.
You had to sell a few. You had to sell a few grains of barley
Yeah.
to get that thing going. Just kidding.
In hindsight, I don't know if I've shook my head a few times. Like, why would I have done that?
Were you stressed at the time? Do you remember?
No.
No.
I was working with Frank and that, and I built my own. The first truck was only $36,000 complete.
Only, but this is
But that
what
was
year?
back
But you
in
know, if you look back
76.
at his entrepreneurial already, at 18, he was already buying land. And
That's true.
Something is in him
That's right.
to be
Yeah.
in business. He says he's not a person that speaks in front of a lot of people, but that still doesn't mean you can't be a great business person.
Oh, no.
But from farming to truck pitting to getting your own pressure truck, that's already a trail.
Well, and it was good. Vic Loreth met me out when I was driving Frank's truck. Vic Loreth met me out in the field one day, and he said, and he jumped in the truck while I was doing a job, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, what do you mean? You're building your own truck?" I said, "Yeah, and I'll probably run it with Frank's." And he says, "Why would you do that?" He says, "Do your own thing." So Vic is really the guy that gave me a bit of direction. He never used me. Him and Frank were good friends. So I never did do a job for Vic Loreth with my truck. But we were on good terms, and he said, "Do your own thing. You can do as good as Frank."
Where were you using your truck at? Where did you end up?
Well-
Where's your first pressure truck job and what did you call your company?
Well, it was Klinger Oilfield Services.
It was, yeah.
And first job was for Murphy Oil. Clarence Rollheiser hired me
What
for the
year would
first
that have
job.
been?
That was in '76.
76, so it was 2 years before I started at Murphy.
Yeah, and I did a couple of jobs for him, but not enough. I used to go to the Esso station that used to be at Big J,
Yep.
and I'd park the truck there and show it to everybody, and hopefully somebody would say, "Oh, let's give this guy a try." Didn't work quite the way I was hoping. So then I went to Wainwright, and I drove from Lashburn to Wainwright every day for 3 months, pressure testing pipelines. There's new pipelines going in for Husky. So I worked on pressure testing pipelines until that was done. And I was in the fall then. And Doug Colbeck with General Crude called me. And Doug said, "Why don't you stop in at Silverdale, just south of town here, and bring your truck?" He says, "We'd like to talk to you." And General Crude then was fairly busy in the area. I went and seen him, and he says, "If you're interested, we'd like to give you a try." I took him up on it because I had nothing else to do.
That beats going to Wainwright every day.
Yes, it sure did. So I worked Silverdale for a couple of months, and then they said, "Why don't you move to Kidscotty and work that field, because that's a busier field for them." And I went out to Kidscotty and drove from Lashburn to Kidscotty every day for 3 years. Oh, longer than that. Maybe 4 or 5 years. And worked out there. Got to be one of the main trucking companies out there.
Did you have more trucks by this time, Richard, or just still?
No, we expanded in the second year. So yes, I did have more trucks. We expanded the second year with another pressure truck and a water truck. And then the fourth year, we started vacuum trucks. We were the first company that ever had a combination of vacuum trucks, pressure trucks, and water trucks, where they could make one call and get anything. That really worked good.
Yeah.
But not a lot of people liked you for it, right? You made some
No.
enemies, right?
No, Rovac was the vacuum truck company back then, and I guess I had a couple of discussions with them about stepping into their territory. Another thing that I did, though, on my second truck, I went diesel, which I got a little bit of heat from the competitors because I was going to force them to upgrade to diesel engines. And we always tried to go a little farther. Every time we built a truck or every time we changed our operation, we tried to do what was better for the customer and in turn better for us.
And stay one step ahead of of everybody doing that, right?
Yeah. And that really was one of the things that I think the customers started to like us for, because we were a little bit more innovative and tried new things.
So how many years, you said 3 or 4 years you drove from Lashburn to Kid Scotty, and how many trucks are on, 3 or 4 trucks?
We ran up to 5 trucks out there every day.
Okay.
And another thing that we did, because we were under such good terms with them, back then in the 70s and even in the early 80s, they used to clean tanks by emptying the tank, digging a hole, pulling the door, and then go in by hand and shovel the tanks out. Dirty job. And why people survived it, I don't know, with the gases and everything that were in there.
And the heat in the summer.
And the heat. But that's how they clean tanks. I had some pretty good guys working with me. My 2 brothers and then Tom Thompson. And we said, let's try going into the bottom 3-inch valve. And we called it a stinger, going in with a 2-inch line that went right across the tank. And we rigged it up so we had jets on the end of it. So we had a pressure truck on it and a vacuum truck tied onto that same line. And we were sucking sand out of 750s. So you didn't have to pull the doors.
So were you guys some of the guys that revolutionized the stinging of a tank, Richard?
We started it. I almost got that patented.
You know what? All the money that you have now, you would have just even had that much more money, because that now, from a producer, that is the norm now.
Yeah.
You don't have to shut your production down as a producer. You don't have to shut your production down. They call it stinging, and you go in there and rather. So what's happening for our audience explaining is, as the sand gets in the tank, and the higher the sand gets, the less room you have in the tank. To the point if the sand gets so high, you can't haul that oil anymore, because where you're supposed to haul that oil from, it's covered in sand. So Richard and his team would go in there and basically do a power wash, get that sand all moving, suck it out with a vac truck, and the production tank didn't have to be the door pulled, which is a couple days work, and we can still stay producing. Revolutionized, we do it to this day, 40 years later, that's how we do our tanks.
Environmentally friendly.
Environmentally friendly. And, there's other people that got really into that, revolutionizing that, Grid Hog and companies like that, but you guys were the ones that did that and went, there's got to be a better way to do this, right?
Yeah, and it was because we had pressure and vacuum, and General Crude was good to work with. They'd give us a tank that they wanted to pull the door on. They'd give it to us for a day to go in and do what we wanted to do, and then they'd pull the door and take a look and see how clean it was.
And how did it turn out? Really good?
Excellent. We filled trucks that you couldn't even drive off the lease. They were that full of sand.
But not only that, it stopped the guys from having to go inside the tank, which was with the gases and the heat and all of that. You guys started doing it from the outside.
Yep.
What a technique.
Now, what did that do for your business, Richard? Like, did it get you recognized? Like, were you recognized for that, or?
Oh, we got called for lots of that. And like I said, we almost patented, but we waited too long, and other guys were starting to try it, so we didn't bother with the patent idea on it. We just pushed it, and it was good.
It's the biggest tank cleaning invention honestly, in Lloydminster history of cleaning a tank by stinging now. Everybody does it. But, oh man, Richard, just for fun, if you had $1 for every tank to be stung since you guys did that, I'm teasing, it'd be mega dollars. Because they do it on every tank, unless it's an extreme tank, but I don't know of anywhere because they don't let it get that full of sand anymore. When they know that they've got valves at a certain height that aren't, the oil can't come out of them anymore, they get the guys to go over there and sting it.
So what year would that have been?
That was probably in about 79, 80 that we started that.
Okay. Now, we know what happens in the 80s.
Yep.
Things don't go so well. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to find out a little bit more from Richard. And remember, you mentioned Cousin Mel? He has a big part of that coming up next.
How can you help support the oil and gas industry and jobs in Western Canada? The answer is closer than you think. Sell your scrap metals to PWM Steel. PWM sells scrap iron to Evraz, located in Regina. Evraz's #1 customer is the energy sector, building pipes and plates for the oil and gas industry. PWM Steel is your locally owned metal recycler and steel service center in the area. Plus, they're a strong supporter of the community. PWM Steel, your top steel supplier for Alberta and Saskatchewan for 40 years.
At Jason Arden Associates Cooperators, we're proud to be a top-rated local insurance company that offers flexible solutions and expert advice for all your insurance and investment needs. We'll work with you to tailor your insurance specific to your needs, and we offer investment advice that always puts you first. At Cooperators, one of our core values is to give back to the communities that we live in. Thanks to the support of our clients in Lloydminster and area, in 2023, Jason Arden Associates has donated $40,000 to local nonprofits, charities, students, athletes, and other special events. How does your insurance company support our community?
I'm Brian Zinchuk of PipelineOnline.ca. I used to be a pipeliner, and I've spent the last 15 years reporting on energy in Saskatchewan. PipelineOnline.ca provides comprehensive coverage of light oil, heavy oil, lithium, helium, power production including coal, wind, solar, geothermal, natural gas, and nuclear. There's a lot happening in Saskatchewan's energy sector, and Pipeline Online is there for all of it. No one else comes even close.
It's more than just taxes at L&A CPA. Assurance, accounting, retirement planning, estate planning, business consulting, financial consulting, farm program support, and bookkeeping. But yes, there is always taxes. The team at L&A CPA is committed to helping you achieve your best results and will be there to assist you every step of the way. L&A CPA, with offices in Provost, Vermilion, and Lloydminster.
Welcome back to Patchwork here at the new Lloydminster Nissan on Highway 17 South. Richard Klinger is being honored tomorrow night as the Oilman of the Year. And what a story. Richard, we've just found out, basically invented stinging, did invent stinging. And that's not the only thing that you guys invented. Well, Tracy had a good question. He said, why'd you call it stinging?
Well, it was a method that we used that we said, how do you go in there? And we used to use a 2-inch pipe.
Yeah.
And then we had a 1/4-inch high pressure line inside the 2-inch pipe, and it went in, and went in just like a bee sting. It just went right in. You went right into the bottom of the tank, and with the pressure, you riled the sand up, made it into a slurry. The vacuum truck sucked on that 2-inch line and pulled the sand out, and we just gradually went in and back in again until we felt the tank was clean.
That wasn't the only thing you guys used to clean the tanks. Tell us about scraping it out.
Well, we tried another method we used to call our goon spoon, and it was a little track hoe that you could walk. It goes small enough you could walk it through a walk-in door. You could suck the tracks in that, and we initially thought we'd even get it so we could drive it inside of a big tank. We put air shutoffs on it, and we put an air starter on it, so there was no electronics on it at all. And we put a little rototiller type of device, hydraulically driven, on the front to go in and chew up sand, and then the vacuum truck, the Queen Bees then,
Yeah.
had the power to suck that sand from the rototiller blades back to the
So
Queen Bee.
I did not, I thought you were a pressure truck guy and a vac truck guy, but now you're, like, that just makes sense. Just putting the, having the rototiller to chew up that sand did it work well?
Not as good as the stinging, so we bowed away from that over time.
Weight would be something that would have helped that probably, is if you would have had a ton of weight to chew up on that sand, because I just think of rototilling hard ground. The reason why the rototiller blade does not go into the ground is good because it's packed hard. That sand can get pretty packed.
Yeah, you could use a pick we shoveled out a vacuum truck where the shaker didn't work, and you could use a pick and a spade to try and shovel that out.
But a pressure hose will just eat that stuff like candy, because it's just compressed sand. As soon as you hit that with pressure or water hose, it just disintegrates. So that's the reason why the stinging was probably more effective, Richie.
So I'm curious, you say, we tried this. Who are you, when you're saying we?
Well, my two brothers worked with me right from the start. And through all this, you'll find I very seldom say I.
Yeah.
You
haven't said it once.
Yeah, I believe it's we. My two brothers worked with us, and then I had Tom Thompson was the first employee that I ever had. He was with us for over 20 years. And through discussions with how to do this and things to try, we came up with different ideas, and yeah, some of them were a little expensive to try, but damn, a lot of them worked.
Yeah.
And really got our company known to be a bit innovative, and hey, we got this job. What do you guys think? Can you do it?
Exactly, for that reason. People are starting to ask you to help them with stuff now.
And we were flexible and approachable enough that we took it on.
Is that when the business really took off? There's shops in Lashburn, Bonnyville, and Vermilion. Like when?
Well, I guess what I at the start here I said I drove Frank's first pressure truck, help him build it. Well, in '81, we bought out Frank's. And so that just about doubled our size. He had 13 trucks then, and they were all gas pots though. But we bought him out, and right about then, Pierre took over.
Here it comes.
And
that
the oil
last
patch,
name.
yeah, the oil patch went into a bit of a downer for a few years, and through I will say my expansion mode, I had dug a pretty big hole with the financiers. I had a good banker. He was CIBC was our bank back then, and he'd phone me at 10 in the morning and say, "Hey, how many trucks you got working today? What kind of bills checks are you writing today?" And never bounced a check on us. But he kept pretty close tabs on what we were doing.
How stressful is this? How stressful are those years?
Well, I couldn't quit. The worst thing you can, I always said the worst thing I can do is quit, because if I quit, I'm done. And it was nothing to go to work at 4 in the morning and come home at 11 at night. Wife was pretty good. She got up and made sandwiches for me at 3, 4 in the morning, and I laughed at her one time there. She opened the bread box and a mouse ran out. My sandwich that day had a little chunk out of the corner. I said, "Did you cut that off or what?"
Oh, brother.
And but she never did say, "Don't go to work." She was, real supportive.
Right.
There's a saying out there as business people that people want what you have, but they don't want to do what you do. And here's a guy that has been tremendously successful talking about, I remember going up to the little tip jar that we had on top of the fridge that my wife did waitressing, and there was enough in there to get some sandwich meat and a loaf of bread for me to go to work that day. You know, he's talking about mouse coming out of the bread thing and taking a chunk out of a sandwich and working 16, 17, 18 hours a day. And then people go, wow, Richard, you just had, there were some challenges and some hard work and some sacrifice through all of that.
Had you built the Queen Bee by then?
Queen Bee was built in the mid-'80s.
Okay.
The oil patch was starting to come back around.
Yeah, 85, 86, yeah 85.
And Mel Klinger had, he came on in about 81, and Mel was a hell of a budgeter and a controller.
Was he an accounting background guy?
No, he was in the construction all the time and had Farmstead Builders, and then later on Buildings by Klingers. But good head. And I asked him to come give us a hand. He said, yeah, he'd come for a couple of months. Came for a couple of months, and he said, well, maybe he should stay for a little longer. So he did. He stayed for 6. Then we moved our offices together. We shared costs, and he stayed on, and we worked. People thought he was my father. He was 7 years older than me, but we'd go to an event, and they'd say, "Is this a father-son thing?" And no, he was just my cousin.
I always thought he was brother, just so you know.
Yeah, and hell of a guy. We worked together right up until he got a shot of cancer, and that did him in. But or he'd be here today.
So how long was that? When did Mel pass?
Mel passed in 80. Oh, maybe 92, 93.
92, okay,
Yeah.
so you had some time with him, at least 10 years with him.
Yeah, and he was there when we built the Queen Bees. And
Do you think you could have got through Trudeau in those years without Mel?
I'd have to say no, because I had, I like I said, I had dug a big enough hole that I needed someone that I could listen to and trust. That when he said don't do that, then we didn't do it. And he was good at budgeting. We spent hours in the office after everybody went home, planning and stuff. Another thing that we did with Mel and I did, is we put our company up for bid to the banks. We went to 11 banks.
Wow.
We made I've got the pamphlet. We made about a 200-300 page history of our company, all the good things about it, all the bad things. We were quite honest in there. We gave it to 11 banks, and we had 3 banks come back interested. And CIBC was doing our stuff. They did keep the work, but they amalgamated a bunch of our payments. They cut our interest rate. They stretched our payments out. They really went to bat for us. And if, I've thought about it after. I said, if we did that and they wouldn't have taken it, what would we have done?
Mm-hmm. Who were you working with back then at CIBC?
Back then, that was in Lashburg branch, and that was just when we moved to Lloyd. George Woods was our Lashburn branch manager, good guy. Him and I got along good. And then we came up here. Barry Punter was our banker in the end up here. There was another banker in there that first took us. Sorry, I can't remember his name.
No, but that just tells you that there's a good story of how the banks worked with you guys to get through it.
To get through those interest rates.
Yeah. And they were good.
And those interest rates back then, by the way.
I don't know how you guys did it.
Yeah, they were 24%. We had some trucks at 24%.
Yeah. I remember one of the houses we had was at 22% interest.
Yeah, that was.
You'd think that was Guido and Luigi giving you the loan, wouldn't you? Back then?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when did things start to turn around?
In the late 80s, we got ourselves sort of in trouble before the Trudeau got involved. And then we were half-ass geared up for cutting costs and getting things in line. And then as we got through all that, and in the late 80s, things started coming. We were sitting good enough then that we started building again, building trucks. That's when Queen Bee 1 was built. And to build Queen Bee 1, I took a trip to Nova Scotia, looked at a vacuum truck out there. And then I went to Cusco in Toronto. That's who built the Cusco units. That's who built our Queen Bees. And I sat down with them and said, this is what I want for a truck. And together we designed it, and then they put it together for us. And then we told them that we were calling it the Queen Bee. They tried to take the name because it was a catchy name. We registered the name so they couldn't touch it. And but they were a good supplier, and ran it for a couple of years. Then we built Queen Bee 2, which was a bigger truck yet.
Now, we mentioned breakup. You kind of designed that Queen Bee around breakup too, so that you could keep it on the. Tell us about putting that together.
Well, Queen Bee 2 was a big pumping. On small jobs, it had the tank on there in capacity. You could haul small jobs and do the job. On big jobs, it had just like a hydrovac, had the big boom on top. Well, we had it rigged up that that boom would attach to our other vacuum trucks. So it was like a big pumping unit. And we could just put it in on site, tie it all in so the hoses never had to be disconnected. All you had to do was just latch onto the valve on top of the truck, and it would sit there to be a pumping unit. And then the semi-vacs and stuff that you would fill with that one, they could do the hauling, so you could adjust your loads and everything.
And be non-stop.
Non-stop, yeah, and easy. One truck's rigged in, and the other trucks do the hauling.
Do you think that Klinger's, of all of the trucks that you had, would you say that that was your claim to fame, was really getting good with vac trucks, Richard?
I think that was a good part of our business, and we were well known for that. We built chemical units for doing chemical washes. We built high pressure units up to 20,000, 40,000 pounds pressure for cleaning bundles. We built another thing that caught on quite well is our bundle blaster, which we could go to the site, load the bundle onto the bundle blaster, haul it over to the wash pad.
What do you mean by bundle, Richard?
Well, they're big heat exchangers.
Oh, okay.
And they
Get full of stuff.
they get shale, scale, everything in them, and need cleaning. And they're in all the refineries and everything. And we'd haul it over and clean it, roll it. We had big rollers on there. We could actually roll the bundle right on the unit. Clean her all out, haul her back to the site so they could stick it back in. Before, they'd have to unload, to pull it out with cranes, set it on a trailer, take it to the pad, unload it there, set it on a bundle blaster that was stationary. Mm-hmm. We could do all that, and it was all certified on, and we built that with online in Edmonton, and designed it and built it with their help.
Just people coming to you for innovation and all the time. So most people think of you as vacs and pressure trucks and water hauling, but you're doing high blast cleaning, you're doing chemical cleaning, you're doing all kinds of things there. So I mean, how many units did you end up with? What was the most when you guys were up and running?
Well, we sold out. We had a little over 150 units on the road, and those are paying units. Those are revenue producing units. They're not 1 tons or small trucks. Those are all revenue producers that we had running.
When you designed the Queen Bee, is that when because if you say Klingers, everybody, like around here, everybody knows, but everybody knows the colors too.
Yeah.
Like those became really popular colors and associated with Klinger. Was that when you designed the Queen Bee? Was that when you went to the
Those
brown and orange?
No, the brown and orange came from Unit 4. It was an international truck that we bought out in Winnipeg, excuse me, and brought it up here and set her up, and the cab was painted those colors. And so when it was a pressure truck, so when we put the tank on it, we painted the tank those colors to match the cab, because I was too tight to paint the cab.
Yeah.
And that's where it caught on good. After that, we painted everything pretty well with those colors.
So late 80s, early 90s, things start to turn around, and that's when expansion came?
In 91, that's when Imperial Oil had called us. And I used to stop up there every once in a while, same as Husky. I'd stop in once in a while and see if there was anything we could possibly do for them. And in 91, Imperial Oil called us and said, invited me up and said, we've got a new concept of doing business. And we call it the alliance contract. Are you guys interested? I said, yeah. Well, I went back and I talked to Mel about it, and Mel says, leave them alone. He says, they're too hard to work for, they'll just break you. And I said, no, I said, I'm gonna keep going to the meetings. So a month later, they called again, we're having a meeting, do you wanna come up? I went up again myself and met with them, and learned a little bit more about what they were thinking of doing and how they wanted to make this new alliance contract work. I went back and talked to Mel again on it, and I said, we're having another meeting next month. So he came with me to that one. And he was impressed. Once he got into something and liked it, he was pretty aggressive. So we went to the next meeting. They talked to us about they want one company to do all their work in Coal Lake. Now that was a lot of trucks back then.
Yeah, it's a big area up there.
Big area. And so we came out from that meeting and we said, okay, let's take a run at this. We told Imperial we were interested. They took a year to study us. They would give me a call on any day of the week, and they'd say, okay, Richard, we're in the Elk Point area. Can we come and look at your equipment working? Okay, I'll meet you. So I'd meet them and take them out to a site where the truck was working, and they'd say, you stay in your truck, we'll jump in with your driver.
Oh my goodness.
So, okay. They would jump in with the driver, they'd throw questions at him, and they'd go to a couple of sites, and then we'd leave there, and they'd say, well, let's go to one of your shops. So we went to the Vermilion shop to start with, and they, you stay in your truck, we're just gonna walk in and talk to your people. Unannounced. They did that, came back, they said, yeah, they were sort of impressed. They went to our Lashburn shop, did the same thing. They came back and they said, you know, you've got nothing fancy in your shops. We like that. You're not spending money on being fancy. We like that. Your people are actually pretty complimentary of you, of your company. They like it.
Did you go, whew?
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
Nice to have employees that stick with you at
Yeah.
that point, yeah.
And so we did that. They went to our head office in Lloyd, and again, they did compliment us a lot on the low visible, nothing fancy. They liked the plain Jane and cost-efficient way of doing that we did stuff. It was good. They also were impressed with the age of drivers that we had, and then they would leave for a month or two. You wouldn't hear anything about them. They'd be looking at somebody else, because they did go to, I think, 4 other companies that they felt could maybe handle their work. And I don't think any of the other ones were in Lloyd, but they're all over Western Canada. And it turned out they liked it. They liked us. They gave us the work, and we started it in January of '91. My brother Glenn moved his family to Bonnyville to run the operation up there. They were impressed. We had a shareholder that we were interested enough in them and doing it right that we sent a shareholder up there to supervise it, to be in contact with them. It was good. They were excellent to work with.
But it took a year to get their business.
Yep.
And that's when things really exploded. But it wasn't real easy for you, because you had a lot of people asking, hey, this, like you showed me an article yesterday that was not very complimentary from some of your competitors on that.
I did have a few discussions with a few of the competitors that
It wasn't your idea. You didn't go to Imperial and say, this is what we're gonna do.
No, it was theirs. It was the same. A few years later, we also picked up the Husky Alliance, and we got a lot more heat from this area, from the competitors, but it was the customer's idea to do it, and we just happened to be the company that they.
How did you feel about that, Richard? Was it a comfortable living? Did you still have good margins? Were you allowed to make some money, and knowing that it was probably a nice feeling that you got up every day and know you had work, than looking for work? But were those satisfying? Was that satisfying work for you back then? And Esso, did they give you a lot of work?
we had a lot of Esso. We probably had 25 to 30 trucks running out at Esso. Wow. And Esso was a cost plus. They were really good to work with, because if we needed to hire somebody, we'd say, hey, we're going to hire somebody to help supervise or to do something. They would give us a rate increase to cover the guy's wages. They guaranteed us a profit for the first 5 years that we were up there. Excellent. And the more work we did for them, the easier it got. In fact, we almost couldn't send our people that worked at Esso to Section 18 for Dome, because Dome wouldn't accept the safety policies and practices we were doing at Esso and getting paid for, because at Dome it was you were wasting time, and so we had to basically keep our people that worked at Cold Lake in Cold Lake.
There's a saying out there that when you go to work for somebody that's in high safety and you work for those companies, you can work for anybody after that, because all the safety practices are in place. Doesn't mean all the companies practice those. But that Esso at that time, I believe, was setting the bar that said, hey, this is the way we want stuff done. Now, that doesn't mean at that time all the other companies were doing that, but the guys were already trained. So when they go over here and go, okay, well, this is even easier for us, because we've already been there to the highest level of safety. And Esso, I mean, all of the orientation and all the job hazard assessment documentation. I mean, you'd have a stack like this probably every day on every job, Richard.
You're exactly right. And that was the way we did things from there. So it was great. Esso also moved us to Norman Wells in Northwest Territories.
Yeah, I know where that is.
We had 10 trucks working up in there. we had the opportunity to go, we drove to Alaska from Norman Wells to do a job with 2 pressure trucks. You know, so we've covered a pretty good area.
So you were working 23 hours a day in the darkness is what you were saying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because I've been to Alaska when that was happening,
Yeah.
when the days were, 22 or 23 hours of night.
Yeah. So you sold in 2001.
Sold in 2011.
2011. Okay.
Yeah.
So from 91 to that, would you say those are the
20 years.
20 years. Those are the good days. Those are the make hay while the sun shines
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, the patch was good then, and yeah.
We had a bump in 96, 97 back then, but I mean, it didn't last long. And through that trending, I mean, 86, you and I were both there. That was a tough time right around that area. Then we coasted all the way, and then 96 was one of our best years that I was in business. And then 97 hit, and it was a bit of a tough year, but the cycles didn't go for long. They'd only go like, even this last cycle we had, we thought, 2015, we're still trying to get ground in a way here 10 years later, but they'd only last a year.
And we
then
did all
we'd be
their
back
work.
up again, yeah.
And we had these alliance contracts, so if there was work, we did it.
Right.
So we slowed down, but we didn't stop.
Yeah, where other guys that weren't in contracts or anything, if those guys didn't have anything committed, those guys weren't doing as well. So, I mean, those probably helped Richard through that 96, 97, and then we really never had much issue after that until 2015 hit, which was the biggest one in our time, I would say, Richard, that it just, it's just going to be for a year. Oh, no, it's 2 years now. It's just going to be for only 2 years. Well,
7 years later.
It's 7 years later, yeah.
At least 7 years
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
COVID in there, all of a sudden that stuff hits.
What was the biggest change? What was the biggest change for you in the oil field you saw from, back in the 70s to 2011? You created some of that change, obviously.
Well, I'll answer it real quick, and then I'll let Richard, because safety was a big one that came up for us. Is that Richard may want to elaborate on that, but stuff. I can say this over the air, but back in those days, Richard, what were you wearing for coveralls and boots and stuff? I mean, we were going to the Salvation Army store and getting secondhand work shirts and pants. We were using nylon, the old nylon skidoo suits and that in the wintertime and all that, because safety wasn't as big a deal back then. Green Kings were really popular. You wore a hard hat. You might have had safety-toed boots on. If you didn't, you just had warm boots on that were doing the job. But, you guys... The safety for us was the big change, but what would have been for
when
you?
we started, we used propane torches on our trucks to thaw the pumps out.
Yeah.
I'd lay under a truck for an hour trying to thaw it out. You couldn't take a propane torch on a truck in the patch right now.
You'd go to jail now.
Yeah.
That's amazing to me.
Yeah, things have changed so much, and safety. You're right. The safety is probably the biggest change. That's where we really, through ESSO, we really learned the safety stuff because they pushed it hard.
Right.
Emissions. Talk about emissions and performance of the trucks. Do you think the performance of the trucks you've been a truck guy for a long time, would you say the performance of the trucks and the cleanliness of them and the output of the horsepower and better diesel mileage and those things, did that change for you and your bottom line got better because the trucks got better or not?
Well, like I said, the first truck we had was a gas engine.
Same with our rig motor on our rig.
And then we switched to diesels, which big improvement.
Just economically?
Economically
And efficiently?
and power and efficient. You could run that truck. It would sit there and run 24 hours a day, never miss a beat. A gas engine. It'd get hot in the summertime, and you'd be cooling her off. You'd have your hood open to keep her cooled down. The big changes on the equipment once we got into that a little more.
Which you forged your way in that. You were the guy.
Well, we started it, and that's what we did. The guys that argued with us about it, I said, hey, the customer will hire who they want to hire. This is how we're doing it. And,
I'm just thinking of something out loud. Tires. How was the tires back then, and who were your go-to tire people back then? Because you would have been smoking through tires back then, wouldn't you? I mean, your tire account. I know trucking guys that they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, years on tires. Did you guys go through a lot of tires, and did you see the tires get better through the years?
We went through a lot of tires. There's no doubt. Fountain Tire has always been one of our main suppliers. Cal Tire was was a good supplier for us. So between the two of them, talk to Scorpion right now. You see the tires that they're hauling out to their shop all the time. I just shake my head because it is a big bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you sold in 2011, did you retire?
In 2000, my son was a lease operator with a flush buy unit when we sold. Flint actually moved me to Edmonton to work out of their head office for 3 years. That was part of the deal. And I was vice president of Connex, which managed their assets. And so they pulled me sort of away from the trucking side that I was familiar with, and just to keep me close and around. When I was finished with Flint, I talked to them about releasing my son as a lease operator, let him go. Brian Butlin, president of Flint, said, "No, we don't do that." And I said, "Brian, he's got one truck. You guys have over 200 right now. What's he going to hurt you?" Well, then Brian, and I've known Brian even before he bought us out. I knew him for a few years prior to that. And he said, "Well, okay, he's your son, we'll let him go, but he's the only one we'll let go." So they did. They released Jory, and he came back and started his own business of Scorpion. He just went from there, and I think he's probably Brian Butlin's biggest competitor.
Well, I was just going to say, because what has he got, 100 and some trucks now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And their safety is similar to what we always did. They pulled. Cole Hoffner was with us as an employee. He knew the safety program. Jory knew the safety program, and they just adapted it to their stuff. And right now they got a safety program that's probably second to none.
What's your view of the oil industry now? And another guy named Trudeau comes along in 2015, and what are the chances that 7 years later the oil field's kind of coming back a little bit? And are you optimistic about oil right now?
I am. I think that what's going on right now is hurting, no doubt, and may hurt a little bit for a while here. But I think we as Canadians have to get our act together and start shipping, interprovincial shipping, cross-country shipping without a bunch of extra tariffs or taxes and everything, and start working together.
Get rid of that no pipelines bill.
Get rid of the no pipelines, and you bet. It's funny how we can ship oil in on the East Coast for the refineries there, but we can't ship oil out on the West Coast because it's not environmentally friendly.
Or gas.
Or we can can ship stuff from into the East Coast, but we can't ship it back to the East Coast from the West Coast or from mid plains or mid province, right? Mid prairies.
So you talked a lot about some guys along the way. So when you're up there tomorrow night, you're the Oilman of the Year. Who are you thinking of?
Oh, well, tomorrow night I've got a number of individuals coming to the supper. I wish I could have invited them more, because there's a lot of individuals that worked with us that really deserve some credit. Daryl Howell is coming tomorrow night. Daryl used to manage the upgrader in Lloyd for Husky. He's managed the refinery in Lloyd for Husky.
And you
And
did
then
a
he
little
worked with us.
and you did a little campaigning with him.
And I've done a little campaigning
Yeah.
with him. But Ross Richards, he was my grade 12 teacher when I went to high school in Lloyd here. He came on and he was with us a number of years, and he helped with our safety division and people management. Excellent guy. Gloria Thomason's come, and she was the first girl that our accountant really that we hired up here that looked after our books and our office staff. She was with us right to the very end. She's actually still with the trucks that we sold and working for that company with the Mullen Group. Tom Thompson is coming. Tom was the first employee I ever hired outside the family, and played a key role in our initial developments and everything. Went from, he drove for us for a while, then he was supervised for a while, and then he managed for a while. Really good people. One brother's coming, one can't come, but Brian's coming. He's the one that ended up doing the farming, but he was always a go-to guy when I needed a guy at the last minute. Christmas Day, New Year's Day, holidays, he'd be the one that would go jump in the truck and drive it because we needed more people. There's good people.
Is there anything, Tracy, that we're forgetting?
No, I
You wanted
don't
to ask
think
Richard?
so. I think, just people honoring you for what you've done, Richard. The honor comes from a couple of things, just to comment. What you do in the community and what you did for the people that were working for you. And, you're getting up every day and there's hundreds of people that you're, we may not say it this way, but we do say it this way, is that we're responsible for. And when those people are working for us, we wear that chip on our shoulder that those are the people that we're making sure are getting their families fed and doing what they do because they're committed back to us. And I think that's part of it too, is that just what you've done in the community, what you've done with your employees, and what you've done just as a human being, that's what the Oilmen of the Year acknowledge you for, is because of that. They're looking for people that have made a difference. I did not know, on a final note for me, I did not know that you were that big of an innovator. I mean, I just thought of you and now broaden my knowledge of who you are, is just the innovativeness that you came with. And with that, that's a lot of the stuff that I've done through the years that's been successful for you. And that's the reason why you're honored. And we appreciate you being here with us today on the show.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I appreciate this. I appreciate getting the award. Guy has to be proud of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Klinger, honored tomorrow night as the 2025 Oilman of the Year. Well deserved. I'm looking forward to that banquet. I'm honored to have been selected to MC that. It'll be the first time in 3 years. I feel like Donald Trump. They couldn't do without me. They had to bring me back. They said, you can't do it. You got to have me. You got to get
It's going to
you.
be huge.
It's going to be huge. It's going to be great. And it's going to be fantastic. We're going to be back with you on, we got a show on Monday. We're coming back to you on Monday. And Monday we're going to be talking with Cynthia and Tanisha Young. And there is an Indigenous makers market coming to Lloydminster, and there's a round dance coming to Lloydminster. They're going to tell us all about that on Monday morning at 10 o'clock.